It can start with a deli on a street once called Corned Beef Row, or with a single handsaw brought over by an immigrant from Eastern Europe. From beginnings this humble, a handful of Jewish families in Maryland built billion-dollar empires, shaping the state's economy for more than a century. These aren't just family trees. They're legacies. They span decades, industries, and continents. These are stories of grit, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to community that turned tiny ventures into titans of industry. So, how did they do it? Today, we're counting down the 10 biggest Jewish family businesses in Maryland. We'll uncover their incredible journeys, from hardship to wealth, and explore the strategic generosity that left a permanent mark on the state. We'll see how they navigated the perilous journey of succession, a challenge where only about 12% of family businesses even make it to the third generation. From real estate empires that redrew the skyline to beloved institutions that feel like home, these are the stories of how Maryland was built. Number 10. Attman's Delicatessen. We start our journey on a street that's a landmark in itself, Baltimore's Lombard Street, better known as Corned Beef Row. It's here, among the ghosts of a thriving immigrant marketplace, that we find our number 10 entry, a business whose cultural impact is way bigger than its physical footprint. Attman's Delicatessen. The story kicks off in 1915. Lombard Street was the heart of Jewish life in Baltimore, packed with fishmongers, poultry dealers, and bakers. This is where Harry Attman, a Jewish immigrant from near Kiev, Ukraine, laid the groundwork for a Maryland institution. After learning the grocery trade, Harry and his wife Ida, an immigrant from Poland, opened a small store selling delicacies to a growing community of fellow Eastern Europeans. The switch from grocery to legendary deli was gradual, powered by the smell of one thing: corned beef, steaming hot all day long. This wasn't just food. For many, it was a comforting taste of home in a new world. The business grew even as other shops on Corned Beef Row closed down. It survived the Great Depression, World War II, and the civil unrest of 1968 that saw neighboring businesses burn. Through it all, Attman's was an anchor. After Harry's death in 1968, his son Seymour took over and turned the deli from a local favorite into an iconic brand. It was Seymour's idea to buy the building next door and create the famous kibitz room for customers. He was also the marketing mind who invented beloved sandwiches like the Cloak and Dagger, a mountain of corned beef, coleslaw, and Russian dressing that's still a bestseller. Today, Attman's is widely considered the oldest continuously family-owned Jewish deli in the United States, now run by the third generation, led by Harry's grandson, Mark Attman. They've expanded with locations in Potomac and Harbor Point, but the heart of the operation hasn't changed. They still use the same guarded family recipe for their corned beef. The deli, which was never strictly kosher so it could serve the whole community, remains a place where people from all walks of life line up for a taste of history. Its legacy isn't measured in billions, but in the millions of sandwiches served and memories made. Number 9. Mano Swartz. From the savory world of delis, we pivot to high fashion and luxury. Coming in at number 9 is a business with a truly impressive title, America's oldest furrier. This is the story of Mano Swartz, a family business that has surfed the wild waves of fashion, economics, and social change for over 130 years. The saga begins in 1889 with Mano Swartz, an immigrant from Hungary who brought his expert knowledge of furs to Baltimore. He set up shop on Howard Street, then the city's main shopping drag, before eventually moving with his customers to the suburbs and opening a massive 14,000 square foot store in Towson. For generations, the name Mano Swartz meant pure luxury. The family business dressed Maryland's elite in mink, sable, and fox, But the late 20th century threw a perfect storm of challenges their way. A recession in the early 90s, a rising animal rights movement, a shift to casual dress, and even warmer winters. It all hit the fur industry hard. Richard Swartz, the fourth-generation owner, was at the helm, tasked with saving a century-old legacy. And this is where the Mano Swartz story becomes a brilliant lesson in survival. Instead of clinging to a dying business model, the family got creative. They had always been forward-thinking, breaking the color line for shoppers in Baltimore back in the 1950s. Decades later, facing new headwinds, they developed products like knit and fur handbags to attract a modern crowd. But their most dramatic move came at the end of 2019. After 130 years as a brick-and-mortar retailer, Mano Swartz closed its physical store to become an exclusive pop-up-only business. This pivot, led by the fifth-generation furrier, David Swartz, was genius. The company now hosts high-energy pop-up events, selling vintage and previously loved furs at huge discounts. These events are parties, drawing hundreds of shoppers looking for a deal and a unique experience. By embracing the vintage market, Mano Swartz also connected with a new generation of eco-conscious consumers who see recycled fur as a sustainable choice. Today, the business is thriving by connecting the past to the future, selling mink stoles from the 60s alongside fox coats from the 80s. The lesson here? Survival isn't about standing still. It's about having the courage to reinvent yourself. Number 8. Saul Levinson Bros. At number 8, we have a business that's been an essential part of Baltimore's Jewish community for 5 generations, Saul Levinson Bros Funeral Home. This isn't a story of explosive growth, but one of quiet dignity, constant service, and the deep trust earned by guiding families through their hardest moments for over a century. The story begins in the late 1880s when Max Levinson, a determined immigrant from Russia, arrived in East Baltimore. He started out by providing horse and buggy transportation for funerals. In 1892, he founded the first funeral home specifically for Baltimore's Jewish community. That original building was tragically lost in the Great Baltimore Fire of 1904. But like the city itself, the business rose from the ashes and reopened. Max's sons, Emmanuel and Saul, joined the business after serving in the military's Grave Registration Department during World War I. Following their father's wishes, the funeral home was renamed Saul Levinson Bros, the name that has been a pillar of the community ever since. A huge part of Levinson's success has been its ability to move with the community it serves. As Baltimore's Jewish population migrated northwest over the decades, so did the business, from East Baltimore to North Avenue to Reisterstown Road, and finally to its current 26,000-square-foot facility in Pikesville in 1996. Each move was a strategic choice to stay accessible to the families who depend on them. In an industry now dominated by large corporations, Saul Levinson Bros has remained fiercely independent and family-owned for over 125 years. That independence lets them offer a deeply personal level of care. They are arguably the one institution in Baltimore used by Jews of all backgrounds, from secular to ultra-Orthodox, overseeing around 950 funerals a year. Now led by the 5th generation, the company's legacy is built on strong family values and deep community ties. Their story is a profound reminder that a legacy isn't always about what you sell, but how you serve. For more than a century, this business has embodied the sacred Jewish values of compassion, respect, and community. Number 7. Bond Distributing Company. At number 7, we find a story that perfectly captures how to turn poison into medicine. This is the story of the Bond Distributing Company, a beverage powerhouse that was literally born from an act of anti-Semitism. The journey starts not in Maryland, but in Philadelphia. Robert Boro was a star salesman for the Pabst Brewing Company. For 14 years, he was a loyal and top-performing employee, but he kept getting passed over for promotions. It was his wife, Tilly Boro, who saw exactly what was happening. She told her husband, "There's so much anti-Semitism. You're the only Jewish employee. They're never going to promote you. We should be in business for ourselves." It was Tilly who took the leap, scrounging up the money and convincing Robert their future was in their own hands. This decision brought the family to Baltimore in 1950, where they bought a small distribution operation. The Bond Distributing Company began with just 2 trucks and 4 employees on Thames Street, a humble start for what would become one of the state's largest beverage distributors. Right from the start, the company was known for taking smart risks. This was critical in the ever-changing alcohol industry. A huge moment came in 1984. At the time, Bond had an exclusive deal with Miller, and distributing for more than one major brewery was unheard of. But the family saw a chance and made the bold move to also carry Coors. That decision set a new industry precedent and put the company on a path for massive growth. After founder Robert Boro passed away in 1980, his daughter, Ronnie Footlick, and her husband, Robert J. Footlick, this second generation, affectionately known as the Two Bobs, guided the company through decades of expansion. Today, Bond Distributing is in its 3rd generation, run by Ronnie Footlick and her daughters, Leslie Schaller and Randy Settleman. They've adapted to modern tastes with dedicated divisions for craft beer and non-alcoholic drinks, keeping pace with a market their founder could have never imagined. They now serve over 3,000 retailers in the Baltimore area. Bond Distributing's story is a powerful lesson in resilience and a tribute to a wife who refused to let prejudice decide her family's future. Number 6. The Haft family. Dart Group. Our next story is a dramatic and cautionary tale. It's the story of the Haft family and the Dart Group, an empire that soared to incredible heights before spectacularly collapsing in a family feud of Shakespearean proportions. For decades, the Hafts were one of the most powerful families in American retail, and their story is a stark reminder of how family dynamics can both build and destroy a billion-dollar enterprise. The empire began with a classic entrepreneurial gamble in 1955. Herbert Haft, a pharmacist, opened their first discount drugstore, Dart Drug, in D.C. Wholesalers refused to sell to them because their prices were too low. So Herbert fought back. He sued the distributors and ended up as a key government witness in a landmark price-fixing case. The government won. The distributors were forced to sell to Dart Drug, and the business exploded. Herbert Haft was an aggressive, brilliant retailer. Over the next 30 years, he grew the Dart Group into a conglomerate that included Track Auto Parts, Shoppers Food Warehouse, and the famous Crown Books chain. He also became a feared corporate raider in the 80s, launching hostile takeover attempts against giants like Safeway and making hundreds of millions even on the failed bids. The public face of the empire was often Herbert's oldest son, Robert. With a Harvard MBA, Robert was the marketing genius behind Crown Books, his face plastered on TV ads with the famous slogan, "If you paid full price, you didn't buy it at Crown Books." He was the groomed heir apparent, destined to take over, but under the surface, things were rotting. In the early 90s, the conflict erupted. Robert, eager to succeed his 72-year-old father, started clashing with him over strategy. It quickly became a deeply personal power struggle. Herbert, the patriarch who built it all, was not letting go. The feud went public. In 1993, Herbert Haft fired his own son. When his wife, Gloria, begged him to reconcile with Robert during a board meeting, Herbert fired her too, removing her from a board she'd been on for 30 years. The family imploded in a storm of lawsuits. Gloria filed for divorce. Robert sued for wrongful termination. The bitter fight played out on the front pages of newspapers for years, draining hundreds of millions from the family fortune. By 1997, the empire was in tatters, dismantled and sold off in pieces. The Haft family's story is a tragic chapter in Maryland's business history, a cautionary tale about ego, and the hard truth that a family business is often more about family than business. Number 5. David S. Brown Enterprises. From the wreckage of a fallen empire, we turn to a story of steady, strategic growth. At number 5 is David S. Brown Enterprises, a real estate powerhouse that has literally reshaped the landscape of Baltimore County. This is a story of vision, long-term investment, and the quiet, patient work of turning empty land into thriving communities. The company's roots go back to 1933, when David S. Brown started a home building company. But the modern firm was forged by his son, Howard S. Brown, who created David S. Brown Enterprises in 1973 in his father's honor. Howard's mission was clear: invest in local communities and deliver high-quality development. You can see the company's biggest impact in Owings Mills. Where others saw empty fields, Howard Brown saw potential. Over decades, his company methodically acquired and developed land, becoming the master architect of the area's transformation. Their crown jewel is Metro Center at Owings Mills, a massive transit-oriented development that has created a new urban core in the suburbs. It's the perfect example of their placemaking philosophy, a mixed-use destination with luxury apartments, shops, restaurants, and offices, all connected to a metro station with a direct link to downtown Baltimore. Once finished, it's expected to have 1,700 apartments, over 700,000 square feet of commercial space, and a hotel, a vibrant hub for living, working, and shopping. Their influence doesn't stop there. They're also behind the campus of Stevenson University and Quarry Run, a modern retail center slated to open this year in 2026. Unlike developers known for quick flips, the Brown family plays the long game, holding on to and managing the properties they build. They've also been major supporters of local institutions like McDonough School and Stevenson University. The legacy of David S. Brown Enterprises is written in concrete and steel across Baltimore's suburbs, a story of a family that didn't just build buildings, but built a community from the ground up. Number 4. The Cordish Companies. At number 4, we have a Baltimore family business whose impact is felt in cities all over the world. The Cordish Companies is an international powerhouse in real estate, gaming, and entertainment. A 4-generation dynasty that has mastered the art of urban renewal. The company started way back in 1910, but its modern identity was shaped by David S. Cordish. After getting degrees from Johns Hopkins and the University of Maryland School of Law, David started out developing shopping centers in the 60s. His career took a major turn when he went to work in the federal government for Presidents Carter and Reagan, heading the Urban Development Action Grant program. That experience gave him a unique insight into public-private partnerships, a model that would become his company's secret sauce. Returning to the private sector in the 80s, David pivoted the family business to focus on huge urban redevelopment projects. The company became famous for its live, branded entertainment districts, which have completely transformed downtowns in cities like St. Louis and Philadelphia. These projects mix restaurants, music venues, and other attractions to create vibrant 24/7 destinations, often right next to sports stadiums. Today, they draw over 50 million visitors a year. Here in Maryland, the company's flagship project is Live, Casino, and Hotel. It's one of the most successful casinos in the country and a massive economic engine for the state. They've also left their mark on Baltimore, developing iconic projects in the Inner Harbor. Now a global leader, the Cordish Companies is still a privately held, family-owned business. David Cordish serves as chairman. This family leadership has allowed them to maintain a consistent set of values, and, remarkably, they still own and manage virtually every project they've ever built. Through the Cordish Family Foundation, they are also major philanthropists, supporting institutions like Johns Hopkins University and Stevenson University. The story of the Cordish Companies shows how a family business, with the right vision, can grow from a local firm into a global force for urban transformation. Number 3. A note on historical giants. Before we get to our top 2, we need to honor the historical giants who laid the groundwork for Maryland's modern economy. Many of the state's biggest Jewish family businesses of the 19th and early 20th centuries were in clothing manufacturing and department stores. Families like the Hutzlers, Hochschilds, and Cohns built iconic Baltimore retail stores that were household names for generations. Lithuanian immigrant Jacob Epstein built the Baltimore Bargain House into a wholesale business that employed nearly 1,000 people by the early 1900s. And then there was Gustav Brunn. After escaping Nazi Germany and getting fired from a Baltimore job for being Jewish, Brunn got a loan from a fellow Jewish merchant and started the Baltimore Spice Company in 1939. From his little shop near the fish market, he would invent one of Maryland's most iconic products, Old Bay seasoning. These families were foundational. They created tens of thousands of jobs, pioneered new industries, and established a culture of Jewish philanthropy that lives on today. While many of their companies were eventually sold or didn't survive, their impact is immeasurable. They built the platforms from which our next 2 and largest enterprises would emerge. Number 2. The Blaustein family, American Trading and Production Corporation, ATAPCO. Coming in at number 2 is an empire built on a single brilliant idea that changed modern life: the drive-in gas station. The story of the Blaustein family is a century-long saga of innovation, diversification, and incredible philanthropy, making them one of the wealthiest and most influential families in Maryland's history. It all started in 1910. Louis Blaustein, a Lithuanian immigrant, and his son Jacob were selling kerosene from a horse-drawn cart in Baltimore. Back then, gasoline was sold in messy barrels at general stores. The Blausteins saw an opportunity. They created a gas buggy with a tank and a hose to deliver gas directly to car owners. They invented the metered pump so customers knew they weren't being cheated. Their company, the American Oil Company, or AMOCO, introduced the world's first branded gasoline and pioneered the drive-in filling station. Their innovations, like anti-knock gas and lube stations, revolutionized the entire industry. AMOCO grew into one of the largest companies in the country. Jacob Blaustein became a giant not just in business, but in global Jewish affairs. He was a delegate to the founding Conference of the United Nations and president of the American Jewish Committee, using his influence to advocate for human rights and support Israel. While the family eventually sold AMOCO, they held on to their other ventures through a private parent company, the American Trading and Production Corporation, or ATAPCO. Based in Baltimore, ATAPCO became the vehicle for the family's diverse interests in oil and gas, manufacturing, and especially real estate, developing millions of square feet of property across the country. Today, the family's business and philanthropic work is managed by the 4th generation. Their main charity, the Jacob and Hilda Blaustein Foundation, is one of the most significant in Maryland, having given hundreds of millions to causes focused on Jewish life, human rights, and social justice. The Blaustein legacy is a stunning example of how one simple, innovative idea can grow into a multi-billion-dollar fortune, and how that fortune can be used over generations to create profound and lasting change. Number 1. Lerner Enterprises. And now, our number one spot. This is, without question, the largest and most influential Jewish family business in Maryland. It is an empire built on real estate, a love of baseball, and an unparalleled commitment to giving back. At number one, we have Lerner Enterprises. The story of Lerner Enterprises is the story of one man, Theodore Ted Lerner. Born in D.C. in 1925 to Orthodox Jewish immigrants, Ted Lerner was the American dream personified. He served in the Army during World War II and used the GI Bill to get his law degree. In 1952, with a $250 loan from his wife, Annette, Ted founded his own real estate company in Rockville, Maryland. He started small, building single-family homes, but quickly moved into apartment buildings. Ted Lerner was a true visionary. He had an uncanny knack for seeing the future of the D.C. metro area. He started buying up huge tracts of land, especially in Northern Virginia, long before the suburban boom. He was the mastermind behind some of the region's most iconic shopping malls. Over 7 decades, Lerner Enterprises became the largest private landowner in the D.C. area, with a portfolio of over 20 million square feet of space. Ted Lerner became the richest man in Maryland, a self-made billionaire. But his ultimate dream wasn't in real estate. A lifelong baseball fan who had worked as an usher at games as a kid, Ted's greatest ambition was to bring Major League Baseball back to Washington, D.C. After a 27-year chase, he did it. In 2006, his family purchased the Washington Nationals. For Ted, owning the team was more than a business. It was a civic trust. The crowning achievement of his life came in 2019, when the Nationals won the World Series, bringing a championship to the city for the first time since 1924. The Lerner family's generosity is as massive as their real estate portfolio. Through their foundation, they have given hundreds of millions of dollars to an incredible range of organizations, with a focus on Jewish causes, education, and healthcare. They are founding members of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum and have made transformative donations to the George Washington University, Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and countless other local institutions. Ted Lerner passed away in 2023 at 97, leaving behind an unbelievable legacy. The business is now guided by his son, Mark Lerner, and his daughters, Marla and Deborah. The story of Lerner Enterprises is the ultimate tale of a Jewish family business in Maryland, a story of vision, persistence, and building on a colossal scale. The stories of these 10 families are stitched into the fabric of Maryland. Their journeys share a common DNA: the resilience to overcome discrimination, the innovative spirit to see an opportunity where no one else did, and a deep commitment to the Jewish value of tzedakah, the moral duty to give back. These families didn't just build businesses, they built communities. They created tens of thousands of jobs, revitalized neighborhoods, and funded hospitals, schools, and cultural institutions. They somehow navigated the treacherous path of passing a legacy from one generation to the next, adapting and evolving while holding on to their core values. Their collective impact on Maryland's economy and culture is simply impossible to overstate. Which of these stories inspired you the most? Are there other great Maryland family businesses you think should be on this list? Let us know in the comments below. And for more deep dives into the businesses and families that shape our world, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.